Hi, and welcome to Stamp with Ginny. Today I'm going to share with you these cute little treats that I made using the oval occasion stamp set and the coordinating double oval punch. This treat is quick and easy to do with a 6x6 piece of designer series paper, making the flower for every seasons perfect for this project. These treats hold quite a bit. I know they look small, but I've actually put 2 Lindor truffles in here, and you can use it with other items also. Kisses, nuggets, whatever suits your fancy. So let me set this aside and I'll show you how I got started. I'm going to start with my scoring for this project, and because my paper is directional, I want to put the top of my paper along the left side of my scoreboard. I'm going to bring in my scoring tool and I'm going to score at 1 1/4, 2 1/2, 3 3/4, and then 5. I'm going to rotate it then and score at a 1/2 inch, 1 3/4 inches, 4 1/4, and 5 1/2. And at this point, I can put my tool away. I'm going to bring in my bone folder for this because I want my lines to be nice and tight and crisp when I fold them. So I'm going to first start by folding the paper on each one of these score lines that I've done previously, just to get an idea where they are. Sometimes it's easier to see them on one side of the paper than the other. And then I'm going to bring in my tool and go over each one of those score lines again. I like to do the small 1/2 inch strip and the next line on this piece at least twice, and you can even do them the opposite directions so that your designer series paper will move and fold together a little easier. Okay, now that I have that done, I'm going to go over these last lines one more time, and I'm ready to start assembling. Now, as I mentioned, this paper is directional, and so I wanted my flowers facing up when it was finished. So that's why scoring the paper and watching the direction is so important. Now that I'm ready to assemble, I'm going to flip this over and I'm going to fold this flap up. This one has a smaller flap, if you notice, and the top flap will go on top of that to seal it nicely. Now you can use your tear and tape for this, but I'm going to use my multi-purpose liquid adhesive. You want to be careful since they aren't equal. I want to put a little adhesive on the outside edge here, and then to catch the inside edge, I want to put a little along the outside edge on the shorter flap. And I'm simply going to fold those together, and I've got my finished piece. If you're using the multi-purpose adhesive, you might want to allow it to dry a few seconds, but if not, you're ready to move on. Now at this point, I'm going to push in on each one of these sides. If you feel better about folding it like this and squishing first, you can. That simply gives you a crease on both sides so that this next score line doesn't buckle. So I'm going to do that quickly. There we go. You can also score that in half on the 2 sections if you prefer. Once I've got that in place, I now have the ability to fold on that inner score line and open it back up so that I have this lovely little box. And if you need to, you can take your fingers and kind of push out on that score line. Working it in both directions can help if you find it's not falling into line like you want. Now that I've got my basic treat holder done, I'm ready to move on to the stamping. I'm going to bring in my basic white piece of cardstock, and this time to celebrate sentiment, I'm going to stamp that in the Misty Moonlight and bring in my punch. This happens to be the double oval punch. That's from our mini catalog, and I'm going to punch out that sentiment. I'm then going to set that aside and bring in my Misty Moonlight cardstock and punch one of the scallop ovals. And I'm finished with that punch and can set it aside. I'm going to bring in my butterfly duet punch, and I'm going to bring in a piece of bumblebee and punch one of the small butterflies. And then next I'm going to punch a small butterfly from the white vellum cardstock. There we go. I'm going to start putting my sentiment together. I'm going to add some adhesive on the back. I just love our basic white cardstock is thick enough we can stamp on both sides when we make a mistake, like I just did earlier. I've got my sentiment together, so I'm going to flip this over, and I'm going to add a Stampin' Dimensional to the back, one on each side. Remove the covers and bring in my treat. Now, my treat holder, I want to make sure that that bottom edge where the seam is does not show, so I'm going to flip that over here. I've got my designer series paper so I can see where the center is, and I'm feeling the score line here on the bottom, so I can put this right in the middle of that area. There we go. And then the next thing I'm going to do is bring in this cute little butterfly done in the vellum and the bumblebee. I'm going to add a mini glue dot on the back of the vellum right in the center, and I'm going to adhere that on top of my bumblebee. Now, if you don't get it perfectly lined up, that's okay, because we are going to fluff those wings to give them a little lift on each side and lay them back down so that I can do the next step, which is going to be these fantastic 2020 in color enamel dots. They come in all 5 colors, so you get a ton of them, and it adds just a bit of pop and shine to this project. So I'm going to take one there and set it in the center of the butterfly, flip him over, and add a mini dimensional because I want to give him a little lift also. Pull off that dimensional backing, bring this in, and I'm going to pop him right here on the left-hand side. At this point, I'm ready to start inserting my treat. So I am going to take the 2 edges here and push in with my fingers and press down. What that's going to do is divide that in half and allow for my project to close. Now, when you do that, if you notice this designer series paper is not popped out but buckling a little bit, take your bone folder and press on those corners, and that will help those pull back out. The other thing you can do is make sure that you're scored nice and tight with your bone folder if you want that crease nice and sharp. So I've opened it back up, made sure I have it the way I want it, popping those 2 sides out with my bone folder. There we go. And I'm ready to add my adhesive. So I'm going to open up one of these sides, pick up a mini glue dot, and set it right past the inside there, and then squeeze down. And I like to do 2 just so that it's nice and secure. So I'm going to add a second one to this side and squeeze. The paper piercer works great because it gives you the control of placement. I'm going to bring in my chocolates. These happen to be truffles. I found these wonderful strawberry truffles the other day, and I'm going to pop those in. And then I'm going to push in again on this side and squeeze, being careful to line up those outside edges. There we go, because I want that center to be nice and tight. And then I need to open this back up and do a little folding. I want to make sure that that line is where I want it. And once again, you can take your bone folder and kind of press out on that if it doesn't seem to be wanting to fold the way you want it to. And that's where the scoring and the bone folding of the score lines is so important. It breaks down those fibers and makes things more flexible as you're putting them together. So make sure you do it at least 2 times, if not more, on both sides. I'm going to put my mini glue dot there, squeeze, and then pick up another one. Whoops, they didn't want to hold. And then open up this other side, set one in, and squeeze again. There we go. I've got this cute treat holder. If you'd like any of these products, feel free to stop by my online store. You can get there from my blog, Stamp with Jini. Thanks for joining me.